Have literally talked to tens of thousands of people about their retirement planning over the years. The other side of the coin, the amount of products coming into the United States from China.
If you look at the real wages in America, they didn't grow too much.
Apple stock went up 7,000% from 2002 to 2012.
How are you going to navigate the next 25 years of your life?
TSMC has now announced a $100 billion investment in the United States after this tariff announcement.
How does that relate to the average worker in America?
With the right public policy, our country is unstoppable.
How does this relate to retirement planning? Hey guys, I'm Darrick Wilkins. I'm with my cousin Drew Nichols. We're with LTC Tree, so we're a retirement planning company, basically. So we help clients all over the country plan for retirement, whether you're 45 and an early kind of planner, or whether you're 70 and kind of late to the game. We help everybody those ages and in between plan for retirement because it's inevitable. It's going to happen. And a bit about a history with both of us is I went to the University of Georgia. I had a bachelor in economics. That was kind of my major, was economics. And Drew, he was from Clemson. Hey, Drew, how's it going?
Hey, Darrick, good. Yeah, so we both have this economics background, and so we really can't help ourselves. A lot of people in financial services are just focusing on, whatever's coming from their upstream, company provider. We're independent, boots on the ground. We can't help ourselves to analyze macro trends and talk about macroeconomics and how that applies to our specific clients. Because you and I were fortunate to have literally talked to tens of thousands of people about their retirement planning over the years. And so we kind of use all of these personal stories and synthesize those with the macro trends. And we decided, let's do something a little bit different. Let's make a video where we kind of talk about some of the stuff that you and I chat about on the phone all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think it's super fascinating, and it's also connected. I mean, how does the 1998 Clinton letting China into the World Trade Organization, how does it affect your retirement 27 years later? And so that's going to be kind of the topic today, because obviously the big topic since President Trump got elected was the tariffs. Why are we doing tariffs now? What did we used to do? How did we get here? How's it affected the stock market? How does it affect your portfolio? And how does it affect your need to get insurance to protect anything in between?
Yeah. And so, kind of rewinding back to the late 90s. So, China was actually admitted under Clinton, and then it ultimately happened under George W. Bush. When China was allowed to enter into the World Trade Organization, it totally changed how tariffs and how trade happened between these countries. And the incentive that was sold to the United States was that China is a huge up and coming growing market, and we will be able to have a new marketplace for a lot of our technology, a lot of our products. And it is true. If you look at the impact, US exports to China skyrocketed by 450% from 2001 to 2019. But on the other side of the coin, the amount of products coming into the United States from China anybody who just look around your house, look around your room you're sitting in right now, look at what you're wearing. It's all coming from China.
Yeah, and then it just kind of gets down to, is that sustainable? And what are the ramifications for being able to get, a $20 pair of jeans from Costco, and how does that affect, the overall economy in America? And so it kind of reminded me the Charles Dickens, The Tale of Two Cities. It was the worst of times, it was the best of times. And so you have some people in America the past 25 years doing really well. And thankfully, I think you and I are products of that. But not everybody's that fortunate, because maybe they didn't get a chance to go to college, and maybe they work with their hands, and it's really created like a lot of income inequality in our country. And what it really has done is, for the people who have money, who have white collar jobs, they've been able to kind of ride the stock market wave up. But if you haven't been invested in the stock market, you're just earning a wage, you've really seen your wages stagnant. So like from 2000 to 2020, you know, if you look at the real wages in America, they didn't grow too much. So the average person, I think they're making maybe 60K, and the average family household was maybe 60K in 2000, and maybe it got up to 75, 80K 20 years later. When you factor in inflation, you've actually had decreasing purchasing power. And so what are those people left to do? Because they still have to retire, they still have to feed their family, they still have to put kids through college. How do they survive when a lot of these jobs that we used to, going back to what you said, that trade deficit, a lot of jobs used to be manufacturing jobs used to be in Pennsylvania and Ohio and North Carolina. Do you remember? You've probably been to Hickory, North Carolina. That's an example. They used to
Yeah,
make
we have a
furniture
house
there.
full my mom has a house full of furniture that was made in North Carolina. Imagine that.
Yeah, go to Costco right now, or you know, Ethan Allen. Any of these, most of the stuff is made in China now. So the question is, what happened to those workers who used to make the furniture? What are they doing now?
Yeah, and then I think the whole conspiratorial side of things, we gotta go there a little bit.
Yeah,
If you look at the winners of this globalization, it's companies like Apple, Nike, Walmart, any of these multinational companies.
right.
And so they've been huge benefactors at the expense of so much of this wealth inequality. And you just have to wonder, is are they now driving all of our policy, or at least attempting to drive all of our policy just to keep feeding their own machines? I mean, that's just kind of the nature of the
I
beast.
think that they gotta be. The companies will hire these lobbyists to go lobby that our congressional leaders to keep the status quo. And, if yeah, again, like Apple, take Apple, for example, going back to where you invested, but keep in mind about 55% of the country is not invested. Most of the country is not invested in the stock market. So if you were invested, you saw Apple's stock price go from $10 to $220.
Yeah, Apple stock went up 7,000% from 2002 to 2012. So in that decade after the China entered the WTO and Apple was able to use Chinese manufacturing, their stock went up 7,000%.
That's great for people who have stocks, but again, we're talking about the people who got left behind. What are they supposed to do? And how are they, what do they do to navigate their next, say you were 40 when China was led into the World Trade Organization. Now you're 65. You're thinking about retiring. How are you getting, and you have genes on your family that your grandma lived to be 90. How are you going to navigate the next 25 years of your life, statistically speaking, when you have not been participating in these?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have Apple shares, you're in big trouble because so many people that were invested just by luck in a lot of cases
Yeah.
have a lot of disposable income that not everybody has. And I think, with our experience again talking to so many people, we do see, both sides of the coin, and it's really frustrating the situation a lot of people find themselves in right now.
Yeah, and I know tariffs, that's been kind of a big buzzword the past month, and like, oh, tariffs are so bad. And admittedly, I had not researched that as much as I should have beforehand, but I started looking at like the disproportionate tariffs that other countries will charge us if we want to sell products to them, but we're not charging them virtually anything. And so what does that do for the worker in the United States? It means that they don't have the customer base of other countries, because if you want to buy some furniture made in Hickory, North Carolina, if you're a citizen in China, they're going to charge you 50% just to get that dresser into China. So, and out in Canada too, I was looking at the farm. Did you look at the farm agricultural tariffs that
Yeah.
Canada charges Wisconsin, the dairy farmers, cheese, milk, eggs?
Yeah, all the things that we produce right along the Canadian border, we have a small quota, and if we exceed that, it's 300% tariffs by China or by Canada.
Yeah, actually, I looked it up before we start talking. Like, if you sell milk in Wisconsin and you want to sell it to Canada, it's 270%. Cheese is 245%. Butter is 298%. sausages, the bratwurst. There's a large German community in that area of the country. 70%, barley seed 58%. It goes on and on. So it's making kind of an unfair. President Trump's trying to do is really not that we want to charge, Canada 25%, but he wants it to force them to bring their tariffs to zero. It's called mirror tariffs. Hey, if you want to charge us 25%, we're going to charge you 25%. Or hey, let's just charge each other 0% and just let the free market work. So I
Yeah.
think that's probably it's a game of chicken. I think that's what's happening.
Well, and the Canadian tariffs have gotten a lot of attention because they're our closest neighbor. I mean, if you're familiar with Detroit, basically half the city is the other side of the bridge in Canada. But
Right.
I want to jump back to China specifically because, you know, unfortunately, we have sort of an adversarial relationship militarily with China. And I think there's some really strategic reasons we need to be bringing back high tech manufacturing. And
Mm.
that's not really affecting Canada or Mexico too much, but it is China and specifically, their claims on Taiwan. And they believe that Taiwan are their brothers, and they will be reunited at some point. That's the official policy line there. And unfortunately, TSMC is the largest manufacturer of all chips in the entire world. And TSMC stands for Taiwan Semiconductor Company. They were actually founded by a man who was educated in Texas, and it could have been Texas Semiconductor if he had not moved back to Taiwan. TSMC has now announced $100 billion investment in the United States after this tariff announcement. So we're going to have high tech manufacturing. And are we going to be the best in the world at manufacturing semiconductors in the first 2 years? Absolutely not. But what you're going to have is that guy coming out of college who gets a job at the plant in Arizona and learns how to do it and gets that institutional knowledge built up in the United States, which is really important for defense and keeping peace, which is our ultimate goal. We don't want to fight anybody, but we do that through projection of strength.
Yeah, that I was reading an article on your very point. Taiwan, they make 90% of the world's semiconductors. And for those who don't know what semiconductors in, they're in everything you touch practically. They're even in your dishwashers, your washing machines, your automobiles. And just kind of like what we saw in COVID, where like once, the virus came from China, once it came over here, we didn't really know what it was. So, do we need antibiotics? Man, do we need the personal protective equipment?
Yeah,
The
like a
was it
mask.
PPE, a mask,
Yeah.
gloves? And China stopped shipping that stuff to any other countries. They hoarded it, and we had nowhere else to turn because they made it all. Shoot, they were making most of the world's aspirin. We couldn't even buy aspirin. So much less if you start talking about like I think China makes a lot of our ships now, ammunition, bullets, drone technology that's come out of China. So God forbid if we were to ever go to war with China, do you think they're gonna just okay, hey, okay, let me ship you. We're at war right now. We're shooting bullets at each other. Oh, let me ship you some bullets. No, I mean, so we have to start manufacturing stuff here, and then tying it back to how does that relate to the average worker in America? That's going to give that Rust Belt person in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina, a lot of the southern states too. It's going to give that person a very high paying job and make us more independent from curveballs that inevitably will happen in the next 20 years.
Yeah. So in any economic shift, like we're going to see with this post-Trump era, there are winners and losers. And so the winners of China entering into global trade were Apple stockholders and other people who were invested in globalization. But to our point, that's not everybody. With this shift, you're going to see more winners being the workers and the middle class. And I think most people, even if you're wealthy or still just dreaming of that American dream, we've kind of come from almost nothing and worked our way up ourselves. No matter where you are on the spectrum, I think we all kind of agree a solid middle class, somewhere you can land worst case scenario, not be super wealthy, not be impoverished, be independent is really a healthy place for our country to be.
Yeah, and it makes me think of like all these big companies. You mentioned Apple, Walmart, Costco. It's going to be good for them too because if you have a strong middle class whose average median income goes from 80,000 to 150,000, that means they'll be able to buy more of your product and you'll pay less for shipping. Think about how much we spend shipping stuff on these big, huge container ships, 6,000 miles across the ocean when you could just ship it from North
Yeah,
Carolina to
and then think
Ohio,
about this, think about the innovation side. So you've got this, young man or young woman going to work in the chip fab in the United States now.
right?
Some of them inevitably are gonna have that human spark, that creativity, just like the
Mm,
founder of TSMC here in the United States, Chinese a Chinese man who ended up getting that spark in the United States. Now you've got innovation coming out of the United States like never before. I mean, we're starting to see it a little bit with China. They used to just copy everything we did, but they've become so big now. They are actually coming up with some of their own novel ideas, which is fine, but we have to keep that strength here as well.
yeah, probably the greatest economic expansion our country's ever experienced was, I think it was like 1820 to 1920. And I think we're on fire, 10% annual growth rate a year. And we were producing 90% of the world's patents and in that
Yeah.
100-year period. And ever since then, it's kind of slowly started to decline over that period. So in China right now, they're kind of,
Well, at the end of the day, the United States is still the only country in the world where everyone who's here is either related to or is an immigrant who had a spark and had their own innovative ideas. And so
right.
with the right public policy, our country is unstoppable. We just got to get the policy right, and I think we're on the right track.
Yeah. Let's tie it all up, Drew. How does this, and let's do it in 2, 3 minutes. How does this relate to retirement planning?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people out there who are going to need to do something who maybe their incomes haven't been growing as quickly as some of the haves in this country. What do they do?
Yeah. So wherever you fall on the spectrum, whether you've got a modest amount of assets or if you've been lucky to ride that wave of globalization, there are different solutions, but there are solutions for everybody. We've
Yeah.
got options to help people who may not have planned for that long-term care that'll cover them for, a year in a facility and a year at home. And we've got options for someone who doesn't have a couple $100,000 to put into a long-term care plan, but they've got that steady income that they can peel off a couple $100 or a few $100 a month, to plan for their long-term care. Because long-term care is the biggest risk most people don't plan for in retirement. Long-term care and income. And so, for us, we're just trying to help people find how are they going to survive and thrive in their retirement years, and we can help people no matter where they are on that spectrum.
Yeah. So great point. So we basically LTC Tree, we work for you, not one company. So our motto is just we shop the market. We're constantly shopping the market, interviewing these companies, looking at products, really kind of drilling down to see if it's a good fit for us to offer to our clients. And we have short-term care products, like you said, that cover just 2 to 3 years of coverage. But those premiums, if you're in your 50s or 60s, I mean, it could be like $100 a month up to $300 a month, somewhere in that range. But if you want more
Yeah,
traditional
manageable.
long-term care insurance, that's that's probably $300 a month to $600 a month, and then you have the hybrid single premium products where it combines life insurance, and then you get into the self-insured model for our higher net worth clients who are concerned about income. Maybe, hey, what if I live to be 95 years old? I don't want to outlive my asset. That's where you can use these income annuities with long-term care to kind of hedge the risk and guarantee a lifetime income stream. So whatever product you need or whatever income you're in, we're here to help.
Perfect. Well, one piece of good news, just before we worked on this video, Apple announced a 500 billion, that's half a trillion dollar investment in the United States. So the proof is in the pudding, as they say, and there's some scary talk about tariffs. It's all going to be resolved, but we're going to have manufacturing back in the United States, and that's going to help the future generations. we're focused on helping the current retiring generation, but we're still going to be here when the future generations are needing retirement. And so there's good news for everybody.
Hey, well, guys, thanks for watching our podcast today, or our video, however you're consuming this. We do these often. Come back. If you want to talk to us about any of these topics, our 800 number will be there, or fill out a form on our site, ltctree.com. Thanks, guys.
All right. See you, Darrick.
See you. Bye.